Welcome, folks. Good to Vach. Yaakov Halach Ladarke. We have been in celebration mode, in great celebration mode for the last month, starting with Rosh Hashanah, then the days of penitence, Yom Kippur, the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, then Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, and then Shabbos, Bereshis. Wow. Things have been lively around here and all Chabad houses around the world, and for that matter, all synagogues. It's been new, a new year, new life, new potentials, new wonderful things ahead. And one of the things is I'm very excited that this year in our Torah studies together, JLI has put together a season that is going to be based on the teachings of Rashi, his commentary. Now, there are many great commentators of the Torah, of course, but there's something unique about Rashi. Rashi is an acronym for Rab Shlomo ben Yitzchak, Shlomo the son of Yitzchak, right? And with the Resh in front, of course, makes it to Reb, like rabbi or teacher, right? And what's so unique about him is that he is extremely simple um, in his path, and yet very deep and complex at the same time. He lived in the 11th century, was a great halachic, posek, adjudicating Jewish law, a great teacher, codifying. But what he is most well known for is that he is the main commentary on Chumash, and for that matter, the Talmud too. He's on every page of 5 books of Moses and every page of the Talmud. No one else has that unique status. The scholars from all generations are in awe with him. And including contemporaries and those that came after him. Let's take a look at what some had to say. Is this?
You might have to download it, Rabbi, please.
I did download it. So this is not the download. Hold on. I did download it. So then this got to be it.
Nope.
Or no, this is it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The famed Ibn Ezra, who was somewhat a contemporary. Actually, he was a teenager when Rashi passed away. He writes, a star has gone forth from France, a community established on firm foundations. An awe-inspiring commentary he penned, his sobriquet exponent of faith. His is a book of redemption for all who question, pleasing to the nation of Israel. 100 years later, the famous Nachmanides, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, also giving simple commentary on the text. Oops, there we go. I will place as illumination before me the lights of the pure candelabra, the commentaries of Rab Shlomo, a crown of glory, a diadem of beauty. To him go the rights of the firstborn, I will study his words with soaring love. 50 years later, the famous Menachem Meiri from France, he wrote about Rashi. Chief among all commentators is Rashi, of blessed memory. If his attackers are numerous, he's equipped to defend, pairing with words succinct and wise. Attackers means attacking his teachings, right? Not attacking, meaning, not him in any other way, but his teachings, right, in the Torah and the Talmud, that's what they mean. Only select thinkers discern his greatness, deflecting bundles of question with but a word. That's how succinct he was. So on the surface, Rashi's commentary seems pretty simple, a beginner's level. But as we see here, the sages found great depth in his words. All sages of all generations. There are approximately 300 super commentaries on Rashi. On Rashi's explanation, not on Chumash or on Talmud, on what he says on the Chumash, what he says on the Talmud. Very unique. Consider even the words of the great mystic, the holy Shalah HaKodesh. Rashi writes his commentary with divine inspiration. And also the Hidah, he was extremely precise with his words, hinting at multiple teachings with the change of a single letter.
Well, get the door.
This is how our sages looked at him and how they dealt with him. In everything was precise, every word, every letter. Some of the super commentaries we introduce are Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, known as the Re'aim, Rabbi Eliyahu, right? Re'aim, Reish, right? Ayin, and Mem, or Aleph Mem, sorry, Re'aim. So we sometimes see when we are Rabbi Yehuda Lowy, the Gur Aryeh, as it's known. Rabbi Yehuda Lowy is the famed maker of the Maharal. He's called the Maharal from Prague, who made the Golam. Rabbi Prado, the Maskil David, Mordechai Yofi, the Lavush, and Shabtai Bas, Sifsei Chachamim. These are but of the few that are constantly referred to when trying to understand the depth of Rashi's teachings. Now, as we know, Torah sometimes is likened to what we call a pardes. Pardes means an orchard that has many different fruits in the orchard, right? Many different things to partake in. And the word pardes spells Pei, Reish, Dalet, Samach, which is an acronym for the simple meaning of the text, right? The Torah can be understood 4 levels: the plain understanding, simple; the allegorical understanding, or the hinted meaning, which is remiz, right? That would be like gematria, right? Numerical values. That's a hinted meaning. Then the homiletic understanding, which a homiletic understanding is what we call drush, darshan. Now, there's how the verse is to be expounded upon out of its literal meaning, or even something that's hinted to, and how we can take a lesson from it, right? That is out of its context, right? That would be the homiletic. And then finally the mystical, which is the sod, right? In his first comments on the Torah, Rashi sets the tone of his commentary. And he says, there are many agadic, non-legalistic explanations in the Midrash. These were arranged by our sages in proper order in the Midrash, in the Bereshis Rabbah and other Midrashic texts. So in other words, he's making reference to not the simple meaning, but the Midrashic meaning. I, however, have come only to teach the plain meaning of the text. And I will also use a text that will clarify the plain meaning of the biblical text, each word in its proper way. So what is Rashi saying over here? That his commentary is coming to help to understand the simple context of the verse, right? What's his intent? Simple meaning only. He's going to use the Medrash. But what will be the Medrash be? To clarify the simple, plain meaning. Okay? Now, sometimes it gets a little complicated because Rashi makes liberal use of the Medrash, right? And it's not often so obvious. But really what he's coming to do is to give us the simple meaning of the text. Okay? That can be confusing at times, right? We do here every day Chumash and Rashi, right? Every day we do this in the morning. That's why I'm so excited what we're going to journey this next year, is we're going to have so much greater appreciation and understanding of Rashi. So there's a chassid in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, wrote a book over 360 pages explaining many of the principles of the Rebbe's teachings in Rashi. And Rabbi Tuvia Blau, he says the following. With respect to the question, we find multiple approaches among the super commentaries on Rashi. Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, right, the Re'im, as we mentioned, for example, thought Rashi makes use of homiletic interpretation whenever possible. In his introduction to Maskil LeDavid, Rabbi David Fredo, one of the great super commentaries on Rashi, disagreed. He wrote, our teacher only made use of the homily when absolutely necessary, meaning when the literal translation failed to satisfy, right? That's what he says Rashi uses the Medrash for. So the first interpretation, right, in Rashi, this is all explaining Rashi, right? So the Mizrahi is saying that Rashi is liberal with his Medrash. In other words, it's not all simple meaning. It will also intersperse Midrashic explanation, right? Because we see clearly Rashi does, when we learn Rashi, we see he brings down from the Medrash, right? The Maskil Adavi, he says, no. When the simple meaning cannot be understood without the Medrash, so he brings the Medrash, right? On the other side of the spectrum, so he's one side of the spectrum, right? On the other side of the spectrum, we find the option of Rebbe Elazar Ashkenazi, the author of Sefer HaZikaron. In his super commentary on to Exodus, he writes that he wrote that Rashi chooses homiletic interpretation over the obvious and plain meaning of the text. So he says the opposite. He says sometimes Rashi doesn't even explain the simple meaning. He's just giving us a more homiletic, expounded meaning. He stated even more clearly, Rashi rejects the literal meaning in most biblical passages and relies instead on the homiletic interpretation of our sages and blessed memory. When he wrote on several occasions, I've only come to reconcile the plain meaning of the text, he referred only to the specific passages under discussion, not the entire Torah. You see the spectrum here of disagreement in understanding Rashi. So the Rebbe kind of disagrees with all of them.
Why?
Well, you have a year to figure that out. Right. The Rebbe takes Rashi on face value. Rashi said, I only come to teach the plain meaning of the text, means I've only. He didn't say, I have come to teach this plain meaning of the text. He says, I have only come to teach the plain meaning of the text. The Rebbe says, you got to take it at face value, what he just said. And not just on this text, like Rabbi Ashkenazi wanted to say, right? On every text is the Rebbe, the way the Rebbe learns Rashi, right? Take them very literally, right? In other words, Rashi is never aiming for the medrash, for the mystical, right? But he's coming to give us a grasp on the simple meaning. Okay? The Rebbe goes even a step further. The Rebbe says, simple, well, what's simple? Simple for who? Simple for me? Simple for you? Simple for who exactly? Right? Well, everybody's a big word, right? Right? So here the Rebbe says, simple for who? A 5-year-old. Why 5-year-old? Why 5-year-old? Why 5-year-old? Anybody? Because it's the 5-year-old who starts learning Chumash, right? Mishnah and Pirkei Avos in chapter 5, it says at the age of 5, one studies Torah, meaning Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, right? At the age of 10, one studies Mishnah. At the age of 13, one's obligated in mitzvahs. At the age of 15, one studies Talmud. So, in other words, the plain meaning that Rashi is coming to address is for the plainest person who's learning Chumash, a 5-year-old. Right? In other words, the 5-year-old is learning this verse for the first time, needs to understand it in their capacity. So the Rebbe paints the picture of the 5-year-old, that the 5-year-old is not an adult, and therefore they're asking simple, innocent questions. Like, why would this character say this kind of thing? It's not in character because he's learned about this character, right? How is the context over here? The narrative seems to shift, right? This is famously the Rebbe would call what's called the klutz kasha. Klutz means, you know what a klutz is? Right? Someone who, has got 2 left legs, right? The word klutz actually means a log, right? A log everybody notices and doesn't trip over because it's a big log. The klutz trips over the log, right? Which means that which is apparent. So the Rebbe says the klutz kasha is the apparent, obvious question that no one asks. You know why? Because adults are complicated. And when you're complicated, you don't see the simple and the obvious. Who sees the simple and the obvious? The child, the 5-year-old.
Wow.
Right? So also that's in the question. In the answer, the child doesn't want a complicated, sophisticated answer. They're not adults. They want to the point, precise explanation, and simple. Get to the point. Is that clear? So when we study Rashi, we have to now, as the Rebbe teaches, we have to be able to think like the 5-year-old, right? Simplistic, non-complicated, right, is what's necessary. As the Rebbe explains. The explanation for Rashi's comment was debated in several publications and several answers were offered. However, each answer took up an average of a page and a half. They cited many teachings from our sages in blessed memory, from the commentaries, from other commentaries, even citing certain pages of footnotes from my teachings in the Likutei Sichos. Now, bringing a proof from the Rebbe. This was in the Rebbe's, when he spoke about, there was discussion and debate amongst the Chassidim that wrote into a weekly booklet that came out with, discussion on different things. However, we must remember that these explanations are presented to the 5-year-olds who wonder why we pester them with lengthy lectures. They want a simple and quick explanation of Rashi so they can go and play. Just explain it to me simply. Engaging lengthy explanations with citations, Hebrew texts, especially texts written without vowels, is off the mark, says the Rebbe. Rashi, all the sages say, is an acronym, Rabban Shel Yisrael. He's the rabbi of all the Jews. the preeminent teacher, right? That's what a rabbi is. That even a 5-year-old can appreciate what he is saying, right? Therefore, he has to speak in a language that's concise, that is direct, not complicated.
So I just have a question. When he did his original commentaries, what language did he do them in?
Hebrew.
But we do them in English.
No, we
our
do it in
Torah is
Hebrew.
English, right? Our English is in English.
No,
So
it's in Hebrew.
Yeah, but the commentaries are written in English
It's written
too.
I read it in Hebrew every day and translate it into English.
Sometimes they say a word in Hebrew can mean this and this and
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. Of course. Yeah, yeah. So you'll see different, translations giving according to Rashi. Some won't give according to Rashi. Whatever. But what we use usually is given according to Rashi. Okay. So it has to be an answer that the question the 5-year-old had, no, disappears. It's gone. Oh, now it makes sense, right? It's got to be self-explanatory for that 5-year-old. So Rebbe explains.
Rabbi, sometimes you notice that there are certain pasuks where there is no Rashi, but there are certain pasuks where the Rashi is a little bit too complicated for our comprehension.
So it becomes a question. It's a question. Yeah, that means it's a question. If you're not understanding it in a simplistic way, then the Rebbe often would ask, what's Rashi coming to say here that the text isn't obviously saying? What is he adding? Or what is, why is Rashi complicating the verse when it seems to be very self-explanatory on its own? So yeah, those would be questions. So as the Rebbe writes, Rashi wrote his commentary in a manner that his teachings are obvious from the plain reading of the biblical text. Rashi does not rely on the super commentaries of Sifsei Chachamim, Rabbi Mizrahi, or others to explain his meaning. These commentaries are written hundreds of years after Rashi wrote his commentary. When Rashi taught his students, they understood him without the aid of these commentaries. Therefore, we too should be able to understand Rashi by pursuing the plain meaning of the biblical text. Right? So not as only the Rebbe is saying that we should be able to understand Rashi without the super commentaries, right? But he's rejecting their approach. He felt they were aiming too high, too profound, and not simplistic and plain meaning enough, right? It has to be for the 5-year-old that he has to be able to understand it and not to resort to sophisticated understanding. It has to be an understanding of a 5-year-old mind, right? If the 5-year-old mind can't understand this, then that's not what Rashi is coming to say. Is that clear? So Rebbe writes, the super commentaries on Rashi primarily explain Rashi in a manner of halacha, allegory, homily, or mysticism. With respect to the latter, it is primary commentary of Rabbi Yehuda Leib of Eloi from Prague, author of the Goraria, the one who made the Golem, who often explained Rashi according to the mystical tradition. Okay. Now, the Rebbe isn't saying that these explanations are incorrect. Not to say that they're incorrect, but it's not what he meant. That's not what his aim was. I shouldn't say that. Not that he didn't mean it. It's not his aim. So how's it not incorrect then? Explain that to me. Mm-hmm.
It could be comprehended in a different way rather than concluding as
Okay, but we just said if it's not understood in a 5-year-old mind, and the Maharal of Prague wrote explaining Rashi in mystical ways. So is he wrong?
No.
The Rebbe says he's not wrong. But how so if it's not what his aim was?
Well, not everybody has the same aim.
No. We're talking about Rashi's aim. 1 second. It's like let's back up. Imagine I say something, okay, and I'm saying take it literally, and Helen, you're going to give a mystical explanation about what I said, but I meant it simply. So right, so you could say you're wrong then, but he's not wrong. Why not? Very simple. Because if I said something, I just said what I meant, right? When Rashi says something, what did we say before? What did some of the commentators say? Prophetic. It was prophetic. So in the prophetic words that he uttered and taught were concepts and ideas that are beyond what his intended message was in the moment. Is there something more there? Absolutely. Is that the aim? No. But is there much more? Absolutely. So it's not wrong what they're saying, but it's not the bottom line of what he's saying, right? It's not the plain meaning of what he said, what he intended. But latent, as we will see shortly, is much deeper ideas. Okay? But we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay? Is that clear what I'm saying? Now, with me, that's not going to be the case because what I say is not divine, prophetically, stated, right?
Yes.
What I say. So I meant simply, and you're giving me a whole, Kabbalistic thing. That's not what I meant. But if Rashi said it, there's a lot more in there because it's divinely inspired. So therefore, the prophetic or the mystical is there. That's the difference. Okay? So that's why they're not wrong, but they're missing something in giving the simple meaning of the text. They're an angle, but they're not the bottom line angle of it or the basic premise of the teachings. Okay? That's the difference. Okay? Now, we've had a lot of upbringings here over the holidays, Baruch Hashem, whether in the Sukkah, whether on Shabbos, right? And, one of the things I miss most dearly is Farbringen, the Rebbe's Farbringens, which is one of the things of a Rebbe, is, holding with his Chassidim Farbringens. So back in the day when I was a yeshiva student, during the week, the Rebbe would hold a Farbringen at 9:30 in the evening. That's when he would start. After the yeshiva finished their daily, and on Shabbos, he would start 1:30. He would start 1:30. And usually the first couple of sichas would be talks of Inyane de Yoima, matters of the day. So if it was Shmini Atzeres, he'd speak about Shmini Atzeres. It was, if it was Parshas Noach, he'd speak about Noach, right? If it was Yutis Kislev, so he'd speak about Yutis Kislev, and, whatever the matters of the day were, right? Afterwards, often he would say a Hasidic discourse. And in the latter half of the Farbringen, it was much more open-ended and, whatever the Rebbe kind of, whether issues, whether it's about Israel, whether it's about something other, commentary on life that was going on, or things that might have been in a more of a random manner, speak about. And in 1964, on Vav Tishrei, in the 6th day of Tishrei, the Rebbe's mother, Rebbetzin Hannah, passed away. She lived in Crown Heights from 1947 until 1964, and she passed away Vav Tishrei Tafshin Chafei. And after that, after the holiday season, because that's between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that she passed away, the Rebbe began, after saying his Hasidic discourse by a Farbringen, he would then start the famous Rashi Sicha, where he explained Rashi. So we're in honor of 60 years of the passing of his mother, 60 years ago, precisely. This Shabbos would be the first Shabbos that the Rebbe every week would speak about a Rashi on the Torah portion. On the Torah portion.
That's usually when after your Chumash Rashi ends.
This is the Rebbitzin right here. That's her, the Rebbe's mother. Sorry?
When the Chumash Rashi usually ends earlier, you check out the.
I take from this book.
Yes.
Exactly. Right. This is sichas, and it's only some of the sichas from the Rebbe. And so it started, right? Oh, there we go. Okay. The Rebbe arrived at his place. Instead of starting his sicha as soon as he sat down, as he usually did, the Rebbe requested a chumash, copy of the 5 books of Moses, be brought to him. The Rebbe, the Rebbe should request a book during a farbrengen was extremely rare. It was the first indication of something unusual was underway. Right? This is the first farbrengen again, after his mother passed away, after the holiday season. So it's a more like regular routine with the parsha, right? Holiday season, you're not reading from the parsha, right? You're reading from different, based on the holidays, right? The Chumash was brought, and the Rebbe opened the Parshas Noach, and he began reading and translating the first passage. Then he moved on to Rashi, reading and translating the second Rashi, all on the Parsha. It was a beautiful scene. Hundreds of Chassidim crowding around as the Rebbe sat and taught Rashi like a teacher in Cheder, first translating and then proceeding to ask several penetrating questions, cutting to the very heart of Rashi's words. No one realized it at the time, but this was a historic moment. The Rebbe had just quietly, without much fanfare, launched a revolution that would accompany every Shabbos farbrengen for the next 23 years that would change the way we look at Rashi. Wow. Yeah. The Rebbe, over those 23 years, went over 800 different Rashis to give a commentary on them. Of Likutei Sichos, it's about a third of the teachings of Likutei Sichos, of the Rebbe's teachings, and the Rebbe giving this novel approach. The Rebbe would often, at different time periods, he would give the Rashi that he's going to speak on. And I would sit with my friend before the farbrengen, right? Because it would sometimes just come out before the farbrengen. And we would sit and we go over the Rashi and then what kind of questions, what are the issues here, what could be some of the answers, and so on and so forth, right? Sometimes the Rebbe would, by the farbrengen, he would just ask questions, and then the weekly publication, people would respond. There was one time that the Rebbe asked, and no one, except for a young girl a young girl in high school, like because the Rebbe didn't come back for a couple of weeks, by farbrengen, brought up the questions to give answers. So this young girl wrote into the Rebbe, I'm waiting to hear the answers to your questions. The Rebbe wanted that we should live with it, right? We have to live the Alter Rebbe said we have to live with the Torah portion of the week, right? That the Torah portion has to talk to us personally. It's not just a historical document. The Rebbe wanted us to live with Rashi. What's Rashi's question here? What's the issue? Because Rashi doesn't ask the question, gives the answers, right?
So he wouldn't, you're not considering, so he's not one of those super commentary people. The Rebbe, he wasn't doing that. He wasn't doing a homiletic or a acidic approach to what.
Oh, he was giving. Oh, he was giving how he understood the plain meaning of what Rashi's coming to say that even a 5-year-old could appreciate. Yeah. In a very simplistic manner. But I learn every week with my son. Simcha, she learns with a friend of hers every week, and we learn sichos. And we, when you learn a Rashi sichos, so the Rebbe asks questions, and you're wondering, oh my gosh, yeah, such obvious questions, but they weren't obvious to me because my mind was a little not so simple, right, to see the obvious. And then when the Rebbe would answer, oh my gosh, obviously that's what Rashi means. It's so obvious now in the words. And again, because our over sophistication doesn't allow us sometimes to see what's obvious, as the old saying goes, right under your nose, right? But the Rebbe gives it in such a beautiful, penetrating way that it becomes so obvious. And the Rebbe would, as I said, disagreed with the other commentators. That I disagreed that this can't mean the plain meaning. It doesn't mean that there isn't an angle to understand that teachings that way, right? But it's not what he intended. As not what he intended.
Ultimately.
Right. That's what the Rebbe. The Rebbe would, if there's an extra word in Rashi, why would Rashi bring a proof text to what he is saying? What does he need a proof text to prove his point? So that would be a question for the Rebbe. Otherwise, isn't it obvious? What do you need a proof for it, right? Why did Rashi answer the question over here when 3 verses earlier, the same question would arise there? Or maybe 3 parshas earlier, the same phrase was used and Rashi didn't explain over there, but he's explaining over here. These are all things that the Rebbe would take into consideration and ask these things that a 5-year-old, now when the Rebbe is speaking about a 5-year-old, he means a 5-year-old is coming to learn with the simplicity of a 5-year-old, but has not forgotten a word that's been taught. Right.
3
Right.
weeks earlier.
Huh?
3 weeks earlier.
And yeah, 3 works exactly. In other words, if he's learning now Parshas Devarim in the 5th book, he remembers what was in Bereshis in the 1st book. He's taking that on that. In other words, right? He's taking so. But if it's a new idea that he never encountered before, so he's encountering it based as a 5-year-old, not with the previous knowledge. So therefore, you have to answer it the way the 5-year-old would appreciate and understand it. Okay. Now, together with that, now here's a little twist on that. The Rebbe saw God as one, right? Shema Yisrael, right? The oneness, not what there's one God, the oneness of God. So the Rebbe saw not just the oneness of God, right? Which means everything is divinely orchestrated, what we're learning in today's Tanya, right? Today's Tanya chapter, the 25th letter, a beautiful letter that we just began today, right? The divine providence of God. The Rebbe saw that Torah is the oneness of God. Even though there are different levels, simple meaning, or hinted meaning, homiletic, mystical meaning, there's a common thread that runs through all of them that ties them together. After all, it's coming from the one God and the oneness of God. So it has to be a oneness in the Torah, right? It must be. It must be intertwined, all of the explanations. So I've explained many times that our Holy Torah is a single Torah. The inner dimension of the Torah and the halachic dimension of the Torah are all as one, like a body and soul. This means that all the sections of the Torah fit together like a multiple parts of a single branch. Now, they're different parts, but they're all part of the same tree. They're all part of one, cord that brings them all together. This is a unified approach that the Rebbe sees in Rashi too. And therefore, the Rebbe says that even though, what is he coming for? What's his purpose? Simple meaning. But what's latent in there? Every other level, even esoteric, mystical teachings. There are hidden wonders teachings in every word of Rashi. Pursue Rashi's peruse rather. Rashi's comments on Torah, face value, you might think that it is light breeding, but look and you will find wonders. And that's what the Rebbe would do. He would tease out, right, from the simple meaning, wonders in Rashi. Beyond that, the Rebbe would see the mystical in Rashi. So Rebbe writes in Hayom Yom, Shener Zaman Liadi, also known as the Alter Rebbe, right? author of Tanya once said, Rashi's commentary on the Torah is the wine of the Torah. It opens the heart, bringing to the surface our inherent love and awe of God. What does that mean? It means mystical teachings in Rashi. Is that his intent? No, but latent in there is mystical teaching. In other words, his intent is the simple meaning, but at the same time, it's intertwined. It's one Torah, it's one God. So it's full of the wine. What's wine? Something that gladdens the heart of an individual, right? So it's embedded in there, the mysticism. And as the Lavush says, every word of Rashi's commentary contains revealed understanding and concealed strata. Both are true. Yeah.
Does the Rebbe also criticize Rashi or just emphasizes on the different aspects?
What does that mean, criticize? I don't know what the word means, criticize. What would you criticize him for?
I'm not criticized. Like
question? Yes, lots of questions.
Yes.
But he gives answers.
Okay.
You mean contradict?
Oh, if there's contradictions, and he'll say
You asked contradict. Does he ever?
Sorry.
So he's asked, did Rebbe ever contradict what,
Did he contradict Rashi? No, he may have not, no.
No.
Contradict him? No, he's coming to explain him.
But he finds sources that actually, we've done this with you.
Yeah.
The one about court, right? Going to court and all that. We did that. with
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
We went back and
So he
forth.
questions, but then he comes and gives an answer. He comes and gives an answer. He doesn't leave. I mean, he doesn't leave the question, or he'll leave the question saying that, he doesn't have an understanding yet. But it means he doesn't have an understanding in Rashi, not getting what is Rashi coming to say, right? It's not contradicting him, though. Contradicting him means that Rebbe didn't look himself as I looked at himself as coming to explain the Rashi, not to not anything but that, right? Now, so what do we have over here? We have the simplest of the simplest, and we have the most lofty of the lofty, right? So Chassidus explains this very simply. The beginning is wedged in the end, and the end is wedged in the beginning. And metaphorically, we can understand, when you have a wall, what falls down to the furthest point is that which is the highest point. The bricks on the highest part of the wall fall down further away. So likewise, the mystical, which is the higher, more ethereal, abstract, the higher point in the wall of the teaching, when it comes down, it goes to the lowest point. So the mystical is found in the simple meaning of Rashi, right? The simple school teacher of the 5-year-old. In the Rebbe's words. Although Rashi's commentary on the Torah explains the plain meaning of the text, it also contains wondrous teachings from other sections of the Torah, including the mystical mysteries of the Torah. As the Alter Rebbe famously said, Rashi's commentary on the Torah is the wine of the Torah. However, to dig through to the wondrous teachings and the wine of the Torah, we must first study the plain meaning of Rashi's commentary, because Rashi embedded the wondrous teachings and the wine of the Torah into the plain meaning of the Torah text. That's a holistic view. As it's seeing it as one, not two dimensions. It's one simple meaning, and embedded in the simple meaning is the wine, is the secrets, is the mystical. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay. So what I want to conclude with is some of the principles that are in Rashi. In other words, they're fundamental principles on how, well, we've mentioned a few, and we're going to go through some of the fundamental principles so we have them under our belt, because for the whole year we're going to learn, and we have to base ourselves on these principles. Okay. First principle was, we mentioned, Rashi speaking to a 5-year-old, right? Explain the text in the plainest possible meaning in a way that a child can understand. Number 2, Rashi does not present questions. He explains the passage, and the questions fall away as a result. We must, therefore, always determine precisely which question Rashi was addressing. Right? Because you don't know clearly the question, then you will not get the answer properly. That's why often, and when I'm teaching, you notice some people are very quick to give an answer. I said, don't do that, please. Let the question become emphatic. Because if it's not clear, the question, then you'll never have a proper answer. Let the question mull over. Yeah, that's a real question. Oh, now then the answer will be an answer. If we're very quick to give an answer, it means the question kind of. Number 3, Rashi only offers two explanations when neither captures the plain meaning of the text fully. However, the two always complement each other. In such instances, the explanation that is presented first is smoother and more conducive to the plain meaning. But it's not sufficient because there's a problem with it, and therefore you need the second explanation. Got it? Fourth principle, Rashi does not usually cite the sources of his teachings. He only cites the source or the name of the person he is quoting to answer a question that student might ask. Okay? If he cites a name or a source, we must ask, which question is Rashi attempting to answer? He's not doing it to show that there's a source, because it's not the source that is the cause for his explanation, because the source might be a medrash. Usually it is. It's not usually the simple meaning. It's taking it out of context. So the fact that he's quoting the source is because it's important for us to know that source, because it's adding something to an explanation here that you might have. And therefore you need to know the source, or you need to know that it was this rabbi that explained it this way. Why this rabbi? Because this rabbi was this kind of person. And therefore he saw things this way. And that's how this verse is being seen, for example. Okay? Here are a few additional rules. Rashi's words are precise. Every word contributes to the understanding of the text. If a word appears superfluous, we must ask why it was included. Number 2, Rashi begins each comment with a header comprised of the words from the passage he intends to address, right? So, let's take an example over here from this week's parsha, right? Parsha's Noach. So, Ela told us, Noach, these are the generations, the offspring of Noach. Noach, ish tzaddik. Noach was a righteous man, right? Rashi, in the first Rashi, brings out, Ela told us, Noach, these are the offspring of Noach. Noach was a righteous man, right? Why does Rashi bring that all down? Because he's coming to explain. Why does it say here 2 times Noach? Right? These are offspring of Noach. Noach was a righteous man. These are generations of Noach, a righteous man. Right? Rashi's bothered. Why does the Torah say Noach twice? That's a good 5-year-old question, right? Why is the Torah repeating? And we're talking about Noach. Just say he's righteous. You have to say Noach was righteous. Who else are you talking about? So Rashi explains. Okay? Rashi doesn't ask the question. He gives the answer. He actually gives 2 explanations. On the question then is, why 2? First explanation he gives is that when you mention a person, right, then you mention their praise. The Torah wants to come and teach you a lesson. You mention somebody, mention their praise. He was a righteous person, right? That's what the Torah is coming to teach us. Rashi's not sufficiently satisfied with that. And I don't remember the Sikha now offhand, so I can't tell you. Because he gives a second explanation that what are, it says, these are the offspring of, well, actually, no, I remember, right? So first is Noach, but then it says, these are the offspring of Noach. Noach was a righteous person. He was whole in his generation, and he walked with God. Noach walked with God. So what's the obvious question? Come on, 5-year-olds, wake up. It's okay, I know the answer. That's why I know the question. The obvious question is, you just said this is the offspring, and then now you go speak about him, and that he was complete. He was righteous. So Rashi says, because what are the true offspring of the righteous? Is their good deeds. Two different explanations. Okay.
Say the offspring walk with God. They're saying no.
Right. Yeah, but you just said these are the offsprings of Noach, and now you go off and speak not about his offspring. Because what's his real offspring?
Good deeds.
Is his good deeds.
Wow.
That's the point. Why is it go walk off on that? Right? That's not the first explanation, because the next verse does say who his offspring is. The first explanation is that you mention mention Noach, and he's a righteous person, so you should mention, the praise of the individual, right? What? Okay. Anyways, I should have. I didn't look. Well, okay. So let's continue over here. So, in other words, so what Rashi brings out as a header is precise. They include every word Rashi addresses, never more, never less. So the Rebbe would often, sometimes Rashi would bring down the first word of the verse, and he would say, and so on, hulu, which means, meaning the rest of the verse. So why does he bring down the rest if he's explaining the rest? Why is he only saying and so on, right? Dot, 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 right? Sometimes he brings down the rest of the verse or whatever part, right? The Rebbe would be even exacting on that. Sometimes he'd be exacting, but hey, he's explaining the dot, 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 not even the first word. So why is he? That's how exacting he would be. I know it's very literal, right? So whenever unnecessary words appear in the header, or when words appear to be missing, there's a reason. Number 3, Rashi only addresses questions that arise in the mind of a 5-year-old. On the other hand, Rashi addresses every question a 5-year-old might ask. If you think of a question that Rashi did not ask, it's either not a question or was already answered. Right? Rashi teaches in order that the child studies. Rashi, therefore, does not ask questions on passages or rely on sources, on the child's studies, right? Or in sources that the child has not yet studied. So in other words, it's something in the Talmud, a 5-year-old didn't study that. So it doesn't rely on that he would know what the Talmud is speaking about, right? That you need that back because that's a background child doesn't have. Right. On the other hand, Rashi expects the child to remember everything taught up to that point. That's why I'm not a 5-year-old. So here are some of the core principles that this year we're going to go through, and we're going to, and what I'm really hoping that we're going to do throughout the year is that we're going to be challenged, challenge me, challenge the Rebbe and what he's saying. We would always do that. Like I learn with my son, if there's a question, we challenge. Not because we believe we're smarter or we whatever.
You're trying to trick somebody out.
Yeah, not at all. It's because it's Torah. You need to understand it, especially the Rebbe's teachings. We need to understand it, and therefore we have to be able to ask, and everything can be asked, no matter what. Has to be honest, right?
It comes from a good place.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Beautiful.
Any questions, folks? This gave us what's very important about this is that we got the background now for the entire year. Very important. So whoever wasn't here tonight should, who does come, should listen to this and make sure that they get clarity. So that way, when we come, I mean, we're going to repeat all these principles, right? And now you have a good foundation. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bless you.
Thank you.